Hi everyone, this is Bob Dietrich again with the ADHD Toolbox, and we've got a special presentation today that we'd like to share with you. And today I have Denise Hornbeak with us, and Denise is an expert in many different things, but she wants to talk to us today about vision and how vision is associated with ADD and ADHD. And we're going to dig into that in just a few minutes. But I'd like to first welcome Denise to our show. How are you doing, Denise?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome.
I'm so glad that you contacted me to do this.
Yes, well, you know, we didn't have anybody talking about vision on the program, and I don't think a lot of people understand why vision is so important. So we're going to talk about that today. And just so you out there viewing know, Denise is a neurodevelopment specialist and has experience with specialty populations such as those with ADHD and ADD, brain injury, brain trauma, neurological imbalances, learning disabilities, the autism spectrum, developmentally delayed challenges, and visual and auditory impaired. So Denise works with a lot of different people, and she's been a licensed brain gym instructor since 1988. We just did the math on that. That's like 31 years. That's a long time. And so she's got tons of experience with that. And she has an extensive background in vision improvement. Since 1982, she's worked as a vision therapist in conjunction with several developmental optometrists in San Diego County. She actually teaches 7 different brain gym programs and is sitting on one of the committees now. So that's everything you ever wanted to know about Denise. And she's an author, and we're going to talk about her book a little later on. But first, let's jump into the vision. And Denise, tell us about vision, because you're an expert on that. Why is vision important for ADHD? Well, actually, give us a little background on vision first, and then we'll jump into the ADHD.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, everybody knows that we see with our eyes, but did you know that visual development actually starts day 22 after conception? Day 22, I mean, that is right within the first 3 weeks of conception. Visual development happens that day. Not only that, but the heart starts to beat that day, day 22. So we know that vision comes along with the development all through for anybody who is born. And vision is the last sense of the 7 senses to develop. Okay, we have our basic taste, touch, smell, but we also have our vestibular system to address, and we also, which has to do with our balance, and we also have our proprioceptive system as well as our vision. So that's the 7 senses. What I particularly want to talk about in just addressing vision before we get into ADD and ADHD, vision is so much more than the eyeballs. We have vision is 90% mental and 10% physical. So the 10% is the eye and the light coming through, sunlight or whatever light it is coming through and reaching the eye, and particularly reaching the retina of the eye, which is on the back wall of the eye, and letting that go from there up to the brain, and the brain does the interpretation. And the interpretation is always based on past experiences. So we have to keep that in mind. A little infant has very little past experience, so their development of their vision and what they see is very limited. And as they have exposure, then the vision continues to improve. Being receptors of light, and by the way, on the back wall of the eye, where the retina is, that's where we have our photoreceptors. Those are the light receptors. 95% of them are rods, 120 million. So those rods take in the light, but those rods are most important for things that are in our peripheral vision, to pick up the things in our peripheral vision. And then only 5% are in the cones, and the cones are packed into the cornea, the fovea centralis of the retina, not the cornea, but the fovea centralis of the retina. Mm-hmm. So the cones pick up the color. the color, and the shapes. And so when we look and see, the fovea is looking at the details. That fovea centralis, which has all those cones, is looking at the details, and those details is only 5%. So if our eye is made that way, we are actually more, it's more important to be very aware of the peripheral vision. And we always say, when I teach my vision rejuvenation course, I always say, the bigger the periphery, the better the pinpoint. So when we're looking at something, whether it's at the distance or up close, and we wanted to see it in detail, when we're looking at that specific place, we also want to include our peripheral vision. A lot of people are not aware that a child's vision continues to develop, and it's not fully developed. Even though it starts 22 days after conception, the visual development, it's not fully developed until the child is 7 or 8 years old. So that's why we emphasize the fact that it's much better to let the child be in three-dimensional space, exploring their world, and feeling things three-dimensionally, than doing things that are two-dimensional, like the TV screen, like the phone, and all these two-dimensional, because the eyes are still developing to understand the three-dimensionality of the world. How we want to link it to ADD and ADHD is, this is very, very fascinating. There's two aspects to it. There's the aspect that we have primitive reflexes when the child in utero, and also in the first year of life, we have primitive reflexes that are meant to be fully developed and fully integrated in the first year of life. Now, what happens is with a lot of my clients is their primitive reflexes are not integrated. The person, whether it's a child or an adult that's showing ADHD symptoms, is one that oftentimes will have those primitive reflexes not integrated. So there's a lot of different primitive reflexes, but the ones in particular that have to do with ADD, like the fear paralysis reflex, the moral reflex, the ATNR, the STNR, the tonic labyrinth reflex, that's the TLR, the spinal reflexes. All of those reflexes, and there's more, I'm just listing a few, they're all related to showing symptoms of ADD.
A lot of people viewing this, I'm sure, don't understand what reflexes are. They're not quite sure why reflexes are important, and you know, why it affects anybody in any way in particular. Can you explain a little bit about the reflexes and tell us a little bit about that before we move on?
Sure, great. Thank you for asking. So what happens is when a baby is inside the mom's womb, some of the reflexes are active, and they're active to bring forth locomotion and movement. So in other words, when the mother feels the baby kick, the reason the mother's feeling the baby kick is this reflex, which is automatic. Reflexes are always automatic. They're involuntary. So when the baby turns its head to one side, that arm on that side will automatically extend, and that leg will automatically extend, and the other side will bend. So we have one side extended and one side bent. So if the baby turns its head to the other side, automatically that arm is going to extend out, and that leg will extend out, and the other arm on the opposing side will bend.
And we call that a kick in the womb? That's the kick? That
even happens in the womb. So that's the experience the mother's having when the mother feels the kick, because it's that leg that extended, stretched out. That's when the mom felt the kick, because that happened automatically, and the mom felt it because the baby's inside there. And when he stretches out, obviously, that's what you feel the kick with.
And that's one reflex, right?
That's one reflex. That's the ATNR. And that one is particularly tied in not only with ADHD, but also with vision. So we have some of these reflexes that are not only will show up as not integrated and for someone with ADHD, but also with someone with vision problems.
Okay. What do you mean by integrated?
Okay, it has to get to the place where when the baby turns its head, those limbs don't automatically go into extension on that side. And the limbs on the other side, the arm and the leg on the other side, don't automatically bend.
I see. So
Okay.
So they'll keep moving that way until that automatic reaction doesn't happen any longer, and that's when you know it's fully integrated.
That's very nice. Yes, yes.
What happens what happens to a child who doesn't have this reflex integrated? What does it show up like in a child that doesn't have that reflex integrated?
Okay, so great question. They might have tracking problems. So that's going to affect them with learning, tracking movement of the eye side to side. They might have problems with both eyes working together, teaming. And they may have problems seeing to the distance.
Got it.
And some adults go through life never having that reflex integrated. And by the time they're an older person and they're driving, remember when I talked about the turning of the head. When they turn their head, that arm extends. So, oh my God, they're turning their head to look down the street, and that arm is going to extend to make the steering wheel turn the other way because of the extension. Or a child in school, and he's riding, and then something happens to his side. So he turns his head to his side, and then he moves. That automatically makes his arm extend to make a mess on the paper because he extended the arm. And it happened involuntarily. The teacher might think, oh, he's misbehaving, but no, it's still in an involuntary action.
Got it. So you say there's several of these different reflexes that occur, and if they're not integrated in the womb naturally,
yes.
And I know like some of them get integrated as a when the child's coming through the birth canal during birth, some are integrated. So if you had a cesarean, you don't get that integration, right?
Very important point that you're bringing up. And the 18R, which I mentioned before, that is one that's supposed to happen not only in the utero, but it helps propel the baby down the birth canal. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all of these things could have an effect on not just vision, but all sorts of ADHD diagnosed behaviors.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about is any array of these could have all sorts of different effects if they're not integrated properly.
Exactly. Exactly.
Perfect.
The second piece of it all is, and it goes back to vision, it's very important for the eyes to work together, to team together. We call it homolateral meaning just one side. If a person is only using one eye at a time, and some people won't necessarily observe that they're not using the other eye, but they'll just but the individual's one eye will suppress, meaning it won't take in the information. So if the two eyes aren't working together, if both eyes are working but not together, you're going to see two images. So they might see double. And oftentimes people will say, I'll say to kids, do you ever see double? And they'll say yes. And the parent is mortified because the parent had no idea that the child was seeing double. And what happens is after a while, the brain doesn't like to see the double. So that's why it suppresses one eye. And that's where the homolateral vision will come from. Only one eye will be doing the seeing. But we need both eyes seeing because we need the information to go into both hemispheres of the brain. So what happens is that's the big solution right there. Getting both eyes working together, because you'll have hyperactive children and adults when both eyes aren't teaming together, because it's like, oh, what should I do? Should I look here? Should I look there? And this is not going on consciously. A lot of this is going on subconsciously. But they're antsy. They're moving around. They're not comfortable in their skin. I had a case of a gentleman. He was 60 years old. He was in trifocals, and He was super dyslexic and had massive hyperactivity within his body. And in one of my courses, he was able to finally fuse the image, finally get both the eyes working together to see one image. It relaxed his visual system, it relaxed his whole body, and it cleared up his vision. And he claims that it completely took away his hyperactivity. So what happens with children when they come in and get assessed in their ADHD? I always want to check their vision, and more likely than not, they will have a term we call convergence insufficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And that ties in with the story that I just gave you, because that gentleman did not have convergence. He could not converge the eyes. Converging the eyes is making both the eyes team together to turn inward to see the image, one solid image. So convergence insufficiency oftentimes makes the child want to look out to the distance, easily get distracted and things like that, because the task of looking up close is just too hard for them. It takes too much energy for them to do it.
So that's great information. Wow, this is really kind of going pretty deep and kind of breakthrough information too, because you can tell a lot about where your child's development is and what their problems are just by understanding where their vision's at.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a third component to this that you were going to present today?
Well, I want to emphasize the fact that in order for vision to develop naturally, play must be involved. Play. Things must be fun for the child. Anytime the child is being forced to do something, it's going to impact their vision. Anytime stress is brought into the picture. Remember I mentioned that vision, that the eyes are continuing to develop to 7 or 8 years old. And some parents want their child reading at 2 years old and 3 years old and 4 years old. Well, the child is not ready for it then. I mean, I personally could have taught my child to read at 2 years old, but I didn't want him to need vision training and then wear glasses and all that stuff. So I knew not to force the issue. And then the funny thing was, he was 6 years old, and he asked me for Christmas to get him a Calvin and Hobbes book. Mm-hmm. And I assumed it was in the kids section because I didn't know what it meant. And then I go to the Barnes and Nobles, and they laughed. They said, "Oh no, that's in the adult section." So I mean, he went from a non-reader to me buying him books that were. And they were jokes, right? Calvin Hobbes, they're jokes. But the point is, when we do things from a playful place, and he gets to read what he wants to read, that's when it will automatically come for anyone.
Now I've seen children where they have an eye that doesn't quite team with the other eye. Sometimes
right.
Off to the side. What is that? What's happening there, and how can parents correct it? Because I know doctors will put a patch over one of the eyes and try to get the other one stronger. What's happening, and then what is the correct way to handle that situation?
Well, clearly in a case like that, they would need vision training. So they would need someone who understands how to teach how to do the convergence, how to teach how to get both the eyes working together. And oftentimes they will be very supportive and give activities to do at home, for the parents to do at home. One thing I have here, if I can show it in the camera, this is called an Infinitrack. And this Infinitrack, when you put the marble on it, allows the child to follow the marble with his eyes, right, to track around it. And so we want to get both the eyes tracking around it. In some cases, like you're talking about, where the eye goes out, we call it a wall eye. Stress is intimately related to that. So we want to bring stress level down so that both eyes can work together and have a healthy visual system.
And so if I'm a parent and I'm thinking, okay, so if my son needs vision training, right? is the patch over the eye helping when the doctors help, do that kind of thing, or when they talk about surgery? Because sometimes I've heard them talk about surgery. Is that
Yes, you know, we always do our best to see what can get accomplished with vision training, but we also want, in cases like you're describing, we also want the ophthalmologist to be involved in the situation. And I did have somebody come down from Rancho Cucamonga to work with me and do vision training. And he still needed the surgery, but the doctor was so impressed that the surgery took. Because oftentimes they'll need several surgeries, and even after those several surgeries, the eyes are not working together. The eyes look good, they look like they're in line, but they're not taking in the information. Again, it's only homolateral vision.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then if somebody does do vision training and they have that walleye situation, how long do they do visual training for to maybe correct the situation?
It's hard to say. Sometimes it's 12 weeks, sometimes it's 24 weeks. It's so long as they're progressing, then we know. And then I'm glad you mentioned that, because I find personally, if I get the reflexes integrated first, then the vision training is much quicker and much more successful.
So I'm guessing you can do the vision integration exercises at the same time you're doing the vision exercises.
You can do the reflex integration.
Right.
Exercise, yes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you can go through both and actually expedite the situation.
Exactly.
Now, is there a certain time period where if it hasn't taken, say, 24 weeks, that it's probably not going to, and you probably should move on to a different therapy or a different solution, maybe a patch or a surgery?
The main time I see a patch is when someone has an amblyopic eye, and an amblyopic eye is what they call a lazy eye, but not the lazy eye in the sense that it moves out there. It's just an eye that's not receiving the impulse. So in that case, it depends on how early you're going to catch it, and it wouldn't be the only thing that would be. So oftentimes the doctor will just give that as the suggestion of at home, but I would personally give a lot more activities like doing the Infinitrack and stuff like that.
All right. So so how do we allow vision to develop naturally?
Through play. Play is the key one to allow the vision to improve. And so in my book, I cover over 100 activities to do. So the child feels like it's playing, because it is playing. We're there, or somebody else is there playing with them. And yet in your mind as the adult, you know that what you're doing in a playful way is very supportive for them improving, being comfortable inside their skin, which has to do with being able to sit still, and also with the vision piece. So both the ADHD piece and the vision piece.
Got it. Now, I understand you also work with adults, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that means, I'm assuming here that if you work with adults, that means that you can do vision training and help them get rid of these glasses, perhaps.
Right. So I offer a course, a brain gym course called Vision Rejuvenation. It's just a 2-day course. And so in the course, I give many suggestions of how to improve your vision, and people improve their vision during the 2 days. And I encourage them to take their glasses off, the first morning, and see what happens, because if you have your glasses on, you won't necessarily see that, oh, your eyes are improving.
Right,
Yeah.
totally. I totally get that. And then I'm assuming they have exercises after they're done with the program so they can continue on with the development.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, so let's talk about how people get a hold of you if they're interested in your courses or even if they have questions regarding this for adults or children. they can go to your website, right? What's your website again?
DeniseHornbeak.com.
That's DeniseHornbeak, BEAK.com.
Correct.
You can find her courses there. You can find her book there, and they can contact you through your email. Is that correct as well?
Yes, superchild@att.net.
Okay, superchild, as it sounds, att.net, at att.net. And you can reach her there. If you have any questions about vision or vision training, certainly give Denise a call. And then, Denise, let's talk about your book real quick. What is the title of your book?
Well, here it is. It's called The Super Intelligent Child, Loving to Learn Through Movement and Play.
Yeah.
So I made up the word super intelligent. So it's a combination of feeling super, confident, and intelligent, all wrapped into one. And it's geared towards adults, parents, educators, grandparents, anyone that would like activities, very research-based activities to do with their children or students, to address our senses. And like I mentioned before, our basic 5 senses, but also the vestibular and the proprioceptive sense. There's activities for all of those.
Did they talk about reflex integration in there, like we talked about earlier?
I have a whole chapter on reflexes in here.
Will they be able to do the exercises afterwards?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then they'll also the vision. The vision's discussed in there too as well, since you're a vision expert.
A lot of the vision is geared towards the young child.
Mm-hmm.
So my courses are geared towards adults that don't want to have to wear glasses to read up close, or don't want to have glasses to look to the distance. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. So if you want to get a hold of Denise Hornbeak regarding your vision or your child's vision, or if you have any questions, you can reach her at superchild@att.net, or go to her website, Denise Hornbeak, HORNBEAK.com, and check out her products. Certainly check out her book, and all the other things that she has listed there. Denise, thank you for coming on the show today. That's been a valuable piece of information. I am certain that many parents do not know to check their child's vision, and how key that is to the whole ADD, ADHD experience.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching the ADHD Toolbox. This is a great resource for you, and to help you discover yet one more piece that might be the key to helping your child overcome ADD or ADHD. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Denise, for being here.